And after communicating, several families really left and came to us. And then other volunteers started reaching out to us. So how does it work? They provided funds, and we immediately opened the first center. I have a question about these people. They were evacuated. What to do with them? Who will provide them with assistance? Where's the food? Where are the beds? These are real questions for volunteers and NGOs who can respond quickly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andre, and this is the podcast Save Peace in UA. Volunteer about volunteers. And today we have Ilya. Let me say right away, Ilya is a one-man band. This is a person who combines everything in himself. When I started working with displaced people, I was given Ilya's contact and was told that if there are any questions, this person will solve any issue regarding displaced people. It turned out that now, this person holds a very respectable position. So, Ilya, hello.
Hi, Andre.
Yes, I know a lot about you. But there might be people who will see and hear us for the first time. A little about yourself. Who are you? What are you?
Firstly, I am just a very active person. All my life, I've constantly been involved in some public activities. I was involved in my own business, and now I run my business as well. But from, let's say, around 16 or 17 years old, it was a story about consumer rights protection on the internet. You know, we developed a service, created a small website, helped to prevent fraud on the internet. It was a startup like that. Then we protected consumer rights in the gas sector. And then when the full-scale war in Ukraine began, I returned from a business trip and started working, helping where it was needed, immediately, literally on the second day after the war started.
Was it a team or did you join some foundation?
I have my friend Max, and we are from the same organization, JCI. It's the Junior Chamber International. I've been in this organization for 5 years till now.
Could you tell a little about it? Because for me, it's quite unusual, as it is for most people.
The International Youth Chamber, JCI, is an organization that unites 124 countries. In Ukraine, it is not very developed, but we are working on it now. However, there are representatives in almost every country. These are active young people who work either in the social sphere, the political sphere, or in business. And so to speak, we communicate with each other, we can visit each other. We could do this before the war. I hope that after the victory, they will come to us, and we will go to them. And so when we started, many of our acquaintances from other countries approached us as JCI and said, "Guys, what's going on with you? What help do you need?" So, together with Max and my wife, we opened the first kind of volunteer point in a shopping center. They just gave us a space for free, and we set up a table there. There will be a photo like that where we are standing, kind of not understanding what to do at all. And then Nikita, by the way, a seller who brought us the first aid specifically for people, we met him there, and we just started hearing people's stories. And the first request was, we have nowhere to live, well, like nowhere for people to spend the night. People who are evacuating. And from our friends, specifically JCI from other countries, it was Germany, Poland, and a few other countries who just said, let's do it. They provided funds, and we immediately opened the first MTP center. Well, now it's MTP, but back then it was just a point.
Shelter.
Yes, a shelter, so to speak, which we called...
For how many people?
The first one was for 40 people. This space was provided to us by an entrepreneur. Into a rather nice space. We quickly set up a shower, beds, a kitchen, and within a week we were already receiving people from Mariupol who were coming. And personally with Max, we talked to them there. Well, it was hard to see, but we understood that it was necessary now, very necessary. And then other volunteers started reaching out to us. Well, how does it happen in any circle? When you start doing something, other people who do it join you, and requests come to you. More people started reaching out to us, and more people were coming. 2 buses were coming. I don't remember, maybe from the Donetsk direction. And these 2 buses, we found another building, 4 floors, again, thanks to an entrepreneur, and we settled it. There were 200 places. We started accommodating people there. Then there was a 3rd building. But all these were private buildings. We understood that This was not a guaranteed situation.
You mean that one day the owner will get tired of it and say, "Friends, goodbye. Safe travels, but not with me."
All the volunteers and all charitable organizations, but primarily the volunteers who initially worked, they saw that from them, as international friends, just as partners, they responded well and offered help. And then this whole situation diminishes, but if you have taken responsibility for people who are living with you, and in our case, primarily these were people with disabilities and large families, you cannot just close the center and tell people, sorry, we no longer have a center. So you start looking, as someone who has taken responsibility for these people, for something guaranteed. And so the next step, we decided to create, in some way, a guaranteed housing.
Well, it's a long journey. Let's explain systematically how it happens. Do you first look for a space or an owner, then somehow negotiate? What's the overall structure?
You mean about the MTP, right?
Permanent residence?
Okay. For me, what is guaranteed is state property because, all right, the guarantee is that you have rented it. Or for example, if we talk about the Prozoro platforms, there are buildings that can be purchased on the Prozoro platform. You take this building, register it to a charitable foundation, either as a lease or as ownership. We are only going the route of long-term leasing. We approached the university and asked if there was a building to provide for internally displaced persons as housing. They said, yes, write a letter. We wrote a letter to them. We wrote a letter to the State Property Fund. Received the response, yes, you can. And then through an auction on Prozoro, participated with other players who also wanted either housing. Well, at that time, housing projects were not yet being done, and they were just commercial ones with us. By the way, what is important is that today at the state level, we already have 2 resolutions that allow charitable public organizations to rent a building as housing for internally displaced persons for 1% of the appraised value without an auction. For this, it is only necessary to enter the register of social service providers. This is really an important story that has been developed by Irina Andreevna Vereshchuk and her team.
You collaborate with the team.
Regarding interaction, let's say, with the state and as a charitable foundation, I realized that as a charitable organization, we did a lot. We had one project focused exclusively on housing. And for 2.5 years, we as a team have been engaged in housing programs, helping various organizations. So you have a shelter, and there are people who want to create a new one, and they need a building and consultation on how to do it. And the second program is support for frontline areas. We saw that without interaction with the state, you can't do anything effectively, primarily for the people. Because when you have support from the state, you understand there's the Department of Social Protection, which provides information support to people, document provision, etc., and generally all international partners. Well, for example, when we opened the first building that we rented, it was very difficult for us to find partners to help with its refurbishment. We searched through JCI, through our organization, the Youth Chamber, and someone purchased construction materials, someone provided them, and people just came and did the repairs with their own hands. And already today, right now, we are working on a building. We are currently evacuating from the Donetsk region, and elderly people are coming who do not take much personal belongings because it is a responsibility and they need care. So we have taken a building now from the new State Property Fund. There's a dormitory of almost 3,000 square meters. And now, thanks to the full cooperation between the regional administration, charitable organizations, and international partners, such a cluster system is already working for us. For each direction, if we talk about it, there is a shelter cluster, there is a CCM cluster. All clusters were created so that international partners who come in and want to help can coordinate with someone and know where they need to go. And all the clusters do exactly this. They coordinate with the regional administration, with communities, territorial ones, with public organizations, with locals, and provide this information. Help is needed there, and then organizations go out and help there. So the three clusters I mentioned, one helps primarily with temporary housing, the second coordinates all temporary evacuation points and places, and the third is protection, well, more about provision.
So, and the provision?
Well, we have support. In general, we need to provide for the center, there's humanitarian response and equipment supply.
All right, I got it. Support during people's stay.
Again, I think that people who will be listening, if they are experts in the field of studying the work of international organizations, I am not an expert in this. I got acquainted with the cluster system not very long ago.
Look, I want to tell you that all of us for the third year now are self-taught. There are some courses, someone comes and shows us. We didn't know all of this. And we wish we didn't know this at all. But because of a stupid neighbor, we have this situation. And you say that I'm not an expert in this. But it seems to me that this is the principle of Ukrainian volunteering. Charity, that we learn on the run, we make mistakes, then we fix them and continue to move forward. So you explain this and I'm like, yes. And I learn almost 80% from you. So let's put it this way. You are a master in your field, but not to the fullest extent. So you are still learning.
Thank you. I'm just telling you this because when I started communicating more with international partners, with their cluster representatives, they have all these fancy words, and they use all these terms and they communicate, they have them, but I don't really understand them. I have a question about the people who are taken away. What should be done with them? Who will provide them with assistance? Where is the food? Where are the beds? Well, let's do this quickly. And they start all these words again. But thank them for being there. At least you tell them this is needed. We had a story. We just opened, bringing people. There are no beds, and the organization quickly responded. They went through their super difficult bureaucratic procedures and provided us with these beds and said, Ilya, I prefer working with organizations like yours. And as well, there's Veronica, 1+1 no longer 1, who takes care of the elderly. Just today, she completed a fundraiser to set up 2 showers. While international partners are still deciding, people already needed to take a shower, and she completed the fundraiser in less than 2 days, 270,000 grivnias.
Fantastic.
From people. And one of them, Vera Brezhneva, sent 100,000 grivnias and supported it because it's an important story. And today they already went to get the shower cabins, and today they will be installing and setting them up. This is really a matter of volunteers and organizations that have the ability to respond quickly. The difference between charitable organizations, local ones like you, me, Veronica, Maikita, is the speed of response. And international organizations, they take time to adapt, to find, to outline. I believe that we are very necessary, and in general, there needs to be more support for such local initiatives like Veronica. I really want her to receive so that she could lead the project, to transport 3 such centers so that she would have the opportunity to hire people, coordinate, because she understands this. She works with this every day.
On this note, I also want to point out for those who are listening and watching us, Ilya was the first to suggest we unite. You were the first to gather us all and said, yes, we will fall one by one. But if we come together, we can achieve something. And honestly, the first time I came to the meeting, I don't really like such meetings. I'm like, yeah, I'm bored, guys. Come on, what are we doing? And I understand you give a speech. I'm like, nothing will come of it. And I come for the second time. There's already a memorandum. We already have a union. And I'm like, yes, I have 10 beds, but I'm short on diapers, and I'm short on cleaning supplies. I start asking like, guys, do you have this? Do you have that? And we start uniting and helping each other. This helped a lot, and I'm glad I was wrong in this story.
Well, you're right in saying that many associations don't work at all. Because first of all, well, there are always toxic people inside who can ruin the story. And it's really cool that all the people, really 90% of the people who created the MTP with us, are all people who truly work for others and seek opportunities, and when you turn to them for help, they provide it. And that's why we now Well, as of today in the region, we coordinate as an association. By the way, a hotline was created specifically for the placement of people so that people know where to call to quickly find a place to stay in the Dnipropetrovsk region and essentially receive all the assistance. Legal information, for example, document restoration, processing payments, medical assistance, just legal assistance. Where should they turn for any questions? They call and find out. And this association of 137 MTP today, which is very important, we know each other and can reach out to one another. For example, 3 days ago, a family was traveling from Pokrovsk. 3 dogs, a large family, and the MTPs don't really take people with animals. Well, maybe you know that too. And I just have a phone. I call her and say, Helena, hi, tell me, please, I know you have a room. She says, well, yeah, here's a room, I can provide it. Come on, bring the family. And it's precisely these kinds of stories for us to reach out to each other. They knew and could quickly help. They're working. If, for example, we know generators or anything else is needed, they call, and we quickly resolve it. Again, it's about speed. Well, we have it. We wrote it down in advance. As a union, we worked on this quickly with organizations and then bureaucratically described it to international ones, and they will provide assistance in due time.
I have a question. There is an association, you said 137, right? Are there factors that make you refuse? Like, you don't cooperate. Well, if you see something's not right, or you realize they'll work for a month or two, and it's just for Instagram and the fund, like, look how great we are. Have there been cases when you said no, and why exactly?
Well, there have been no cases where we refused, well, registration in our union. One thing is that there are centers that join the union, even though they don't have, well, we have an official list. Those who know, the 930th resolution, which all these places need to comply with, and there are places that do not comply with this resolution. And essentially, we cannot take them, but we still add them. This is more of a legal part. But regarding the practical aspect, as you say, when people are dishonest or some issues arise, well, mostly these centers closed on their own because after some time, people still contact us because people know about the union. People can write, call the hotline. And so, for example, there was one center in Novomoskovsk where there was some, well, unpleasant story. They were doing something there or forcing people
to work.
They were forced to work, and we know that it closed. There was a story, for example, when I am also the deputy head of the Council of Internally Displaced Persons of the Dnipropetrovsk region. Again, why did I go there? Because
I saw you are in the context, you know the issues.
I saw the announcement, wrote a motivational letter. I understand what I do, what I understand, and I offered. And in general, because it's a charitable organization, I have more time and opportunities to work in the Council of Internally Displaced Persons to do something. Because in the Council of Internally Displaced Persons, there is a problem with people working there. It's without a salary, you work solely on a voluntary basis, unpaid, and you are an advisory body to the regional military administration. But if you have a project, I want to advise everyone watching us, if they have a project aimed at supporting internally displaced persons and they want to implement it, then they should definitely go to the Council of IDPs, submit an application there, join, and propose initiatives. They reach the relevant deputy of the regional military administration, and there is an opportunity to communicate with all international partners and get acquainted with organizations that work specifically in the field he wants to enter. So regarding the Council of Internally Displaced Persons, I saw that it is a tool, but any tool works well if a person actually uses it and does not expect it to be a button that will simply fulfill all their wishes and achieve their goals without any work. Well, because the people who come to these councils, I hear that they saying, well, like, why aren't you doing anything? Why are you...
My favorite question, top of the top list.
When people join the councils for internally displaced persons, both regional and local district councils, They do not understand what they can do there and what projects they can implement for people or from their fund, or if it's an internally displaced person who is just an active individual and joins there. And right now, we are working on increasing the capacity of these councils and providing more resources to understand that, yes, indeed, they have an impact. But a simple example, when, for instance, there is a problem in the community, let's take, for example, the village Novomoskovsk in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and there's a council of internally displaced persons. If they have an issue, their issue at the coordination headquarters at the coordination center, which was with Irina Andreevna. So it reached Irina Andreevna directly. Or we had a problem with Karuni 1. Do you know the center?
It seems to me that all of Dnipro knows if someone outside of Dnipro in Ukraine hears us. We have such a wonderful shelter. Honestly, I don't remember. There are more than 250 people living there, many children. And there was a story that they wanted to take this place away.
Yes, and they essentially wanted to evict people. And thanks to the fact that there is a regional administration, well, first of all, honestly, it was thanks to Irina Andreevna, because the issue was raised at the coordination center personally by Talina, who manages the center. The state property fund heard it, and everyone and I was surprised. Indeed, the issue was resolved. Now, the building remains with the people. They live there and will continue to restore it. A lease agreement have been formalized.
All the factors came together, both the support of the authorities and the support of the IDP system.
And the public?
Public support as well.
I know that many even, what's the name?
FEMA.
FEMA, yes, supported. It was very important. Well, media support is generally important.
FEMA Konstantinovsky, he's my friend. But I always forget the correct stress in his last name. FEMA Konstantinovsky or Konstantinovsky. Sorry, my friend. This is a person you know from the Dnipro team. This is a person involved in humor and creativity. During the war, he took on the responsibility of working with children living in the shelter on Karuni, and he always comes on weekends, constantly taking them to McDonald's, to some shows, to the movies. He's like an entertaining animator, always in touch with the kids. So FEMA is great.
Yes, he's cool, and he's we were at the meeting, there were representatives, those who, well, at that time didn't want to agree to the contract, and he was very, I would say...
Yeah, I know how he can speak sometimes.
Yes, he didn't choose his words, right?
Well, yes.
Well, it's important. Protecting people...
These are emotions we understand. I still can't quite understand. You have a position, and you do this, and you do that. Honestly, but I see on social media, you independently go out for evacuation. I hardly know any leaders of funds who are just involved in communication through evacuation and shelters. You do almost the entire chain yourself. Rescue, settlement, and so on. Why?
Last year, when people were coming to us from the Kherson region, I saw that people didn't understand where they were going and therefore didn't want to go. When you talk to a person, we decided together to go with Max. I traveled a lot with my Kita. Thanks to him, by the way, because he is my Kita and the person with whom I first traveled with his team, with instructions on safety measures that need to be taken when you go to such a combat zone. And we started traveling to the Kherson region, to communities, to communicate with people. And after talking, several families indeed left, and they left to us. And in our center, they live. And when we started going there more, I realized that I want to understand more about the problems and needs of the people, because there is communication with international partners. There are organizations that want to help to coordinate them, like, for example, the Coordination Humanitarian Center in the Kharkiv region did. They help coordinate organizations. Yes, Yevon's team is really cool, really strong guys and girls. They work right now. Evacuation is happening and they are coordinating again. Everything is organized. I handle the transit points there. Right now, they are in charge of evacuation and coordination of this process. I am responsible for the transit points for placing people and then either keeping them in Dnipro and the region for those who do not want to leave. There are such people and they stay, and those who are ready move on to other regions. What we talked about regarding departures, and we found a way to support frontline communities. A volunteer from Japan arrived to us in the image of Pikachu. Maybe someone has seen him. He's been traveling for 2 years, more than 2 years. Right now, he's in the Pokrovsk direction. He went with his hats, with gifts. He is simply trying, like, so to speak, an entertainer to lift the spirits of the children at the evacuation point, entertaining them. And if he sees critical needs, he always provides for them. Again, as we said, critical needs right now, right this moment, to go buy medicine, to go buy food, to go buy, well, clothes, to pay for a bus ticket, well, for example. That's what's quick. And we started traveling first the Kherson region, then the Zaporizhia and Donetsk regions. And for me, it's important to be there constantly, to be, well, like in the center of to communicate with people there. And when you, like we were, such a story, when the Nova Kakhovka Dam was blown up, we spent almost 2 months there with the whole team. And I was rowing a boat. We delivered aid to people. When there was maximum flooding there, at that time, people did not want to evacuate to the city because there was no electricity, there was nothing.
I remember that legendary video. Nikita, need some water. Will we need to evacuate? No.
But there were people we talked to, and they agreed to get in and cross.
Do you think it happened because of live communication?
I think that when people feel, well, let's say, there they understood that the water might recede and they want to stay. When we talk about places with active combat and shelling, communication with people when they understand where they will go, and you guarantee them that you will not abandon them. Right now, today, they tell me they want to take a woman and her mother, 90 years old. She says, I don't know how I will leave without my mom, and where to go with my mom, and where will they take us, and surely there won't be problems like being put in a gym. And I say, bring her to us, to our center. We will accommodate. And then, for example, when I arrived and said, here are the photos, you can come to us, we have everything. No one will kick you out if they don't find you proper places in other regions. You will stay with us. We have already worked this out. We have an agreement there. It will be for 10 years. We are on the list. We have a team. So to persuade people to go, you need to communicate with them and truly be confident that you can provide them with what they need. For example, to mention the university, I communicate with the university representatives. And when I called them and asked, people are coming, they need to be accommodated. If it were just an official matter, I would have been refused because, well, there is no lease yet. Sorry. Because there are relationships and because people trust me. They provided the building before the documents were formalized and we accommodated people.
It seems to me that in the third year of the war, this is how everything happens. If at the beginning everyone trusted everyone, gave money, premises, some humanitarian aid, now, if you have a name, if you are respected, if you haven't been involved in some scam, if you haven't deceived people, as they say, then they trust you. Therefore, now it's only trust. There's no enthusiasm anymore. I already feel it myself. And it's good that there are people who don't give up. Because unfortunately, I know many volunteers, great volunteers, who have made a name for themselves. They are respected, but they honestly said, we can't anymore. We just want to work. We don't see the point. And they gave it up. It's very nice and right that people like you remain.
You talk about this, I started thinking, why do I stay? Why at all?
Don't think too much about it. Stay.
No, I just think about how much I really like the people who are here. If we talk about the business environment, I don't want to offend, the business and the people.
Come on, tell me. Let me insult and you say, no, they are good. I understand what you mean. Some of our businesses don't notice the war. Is that what you mean?
I mean about this and that in general. If you come to our address where people are currently being accommodated, there is a very friendly atmosphere among the team. Humor. Humor is really the thing that holds us together. Max and I, we constantly tease each other and we rely on this humor. All the time, no matter where we are, under fire, wherever we are, I know that all the guys, essentially the girls, both military and civilians, well, humor helps us hold on. And when we communicate together, when you talk with organizations, with most of them like Roma Fund for Heroes, Veronica, again, there is Marina. We help mostly, well, these are people who are interesting, who are truly open to new things, and with whom you can create cool stories. Stories that motivates you. Well, there is a part of business. For example, I have a production. This is a story solely about the calculation of the majority, possibly. And there is motivation in creating something, but I am more motivated when, for example, we created a center, people live there, I come there, look at them, and for me, it's like, let's put it this way, there are people for whom the social effect they achieved is their own realization. More than if they, for example, built a factory. Someone do it this way, someone in the other way.
I understand you.
Probably for me, it's like,
This is your path.
probably yes. Probably yes. Although the first year I didn't understand where I was going and why and what I was doing.
No one understands. The whole point is that everyone rushed forward, and that's what the volunteer movement relied on. And then some started to drop off, those who said, but we're not earning here. Then they're like, oh, we're done. Oh, we've done everything for the country. Then there are those who say, oh, let's go to them. I especially adore the volunteers who, at the end of 2023, say, oh, I can be a volunteer. Well, these ones, well, I can't swear because Nikita said so. We can't swear here. Well, I don't respect such volunteers at all. Like, why do they want to stand out? For what? To show, oh, I have a little connection to the movement, to this. Like to take a photo. I'm such a good guy. I didn't do anything before this, but I'm involved. So I think the main thing is for our team to stick together.
Yes.
And supported. But if indeed someone new comes, not everyone is like I just said. So we could see their true face.
We now want, with our large team, to focus on housing issues and the consolidation of temporary accommodation. By the way, consolidation of temporary accommodation is such a phrase, but essentially it's about consolidating temporary living places. It's an opportunity to create normal conditions for the people living there, to close some centers that do not meet the requirements where there are no legal guarantees, relocate people to other places, and do this on a national level. We are currently developing such a project so that one of our funds, which is working, by the way, the union founder, co-founder of the Shelter Union and Kostya, he has a charitable fund. His foundation was created in 2014. They are internally displaced persons from Luhansk region, and now everyone who works in their foundation are people who were forced to relocate, and they know the problems very well. And now we want to unite all the housing programs that exist at the national level, to unite the associations that exist in order to create a real central one. Well, when we sit, all of us who work in the same field talk about problems, we can do something systematic. And now it is necessary to talk about this because, let's say we have IDPs. So you have people living there. What should they do next? We need to think about this. What should they do after the war ends? What will we do when we win, and what should people do? We need a social housing fund or a temporary housing fund. We have bylaws and laws about this, and amendments are currently being introduced by members of parliament. But what should we actually do? We, the volunteers who receive people, where to relocate them afterwards, and so
I think we don't need to think about this right now. But we need to think about what we can propose to the authorities so they make the right decision. You started to say that some amendments have begun to be adopted. Do you have perhaps your own plan for how we should develop? Which direction should we go to? Let's not play fantasy like we all want victory, but let's be realistic and just live in the paradigm of today's time. We have a war. We do not know how long it will continue, and these people have no homes of their own. Are there any step-by-step measures we could offer them? Maybe the government should do this? Maybe it's the unification of society. Maybe both society and the government?
well, nowadays it's more, there are state programs like lending, there's Ocelia, co-financing, but
All this is true. You put it correctly, but it's unrealistic for my curses.
for most people, this is unrealistic. That's why we were recently at a forum of IDP councils where the deputy minister of reintegration said that they see a strategy like social rent for the future. That is, all these MTPs become, so to speak, a temporary housing fund, and social rent is established there. Well, again, it seems to me, let's say this is our initiative, I want to now support organizations such as Charitable, Public, as well as temporarily occupied communities that have relocated so that they can rent buildings or have them transferred to their ownership if we are talking about temporarily occupied communities. For example, Berdyansk, yes, temporarily occupied Berdyansk, they relocated to Dnipro. They can take ownership of a building, it will be transferred to them as communal property, and they can already carry out repairs there, involve international partners, build something on the land plot because it is their property, and they can use it. I think it is necessary to support as many initiatives as possible from those who are ready to be the administrator of this story, like how I took on 2 buildings now, and our team is working to create conditions there to socialize people, to provide such people with buildings or land. For example, in our communities, we have now written a letter to the communities addressed from Dead Heritage. If there are houses that are left unused, for instance, in Poltava. In Poltava, if I'm not mistaken, 36 houses were given to internally displaced persons. It's a great story. I don't know how it is legally formalized there, but now I want to figure it out. You take a house, there is a family ready to move, let's say, to the Dnipropetrovsk region, closer to Kryvyi Rih, for example, there. Solon, yes. And there, Apolonivka, any settlement, move there and live there. Therefore, essentially, I see now that we need to support, from our side as civil society, the opportunity, and there is such an opportunity at the state level. There are already these 2 resolutions, to lease long-term, to lease for objectively not, low. Take it for rent, restore it, use it as housing for people, use it for some projects for internally displaced persons, for veterans, to create inclusion. For example, most of the dormitories in our city, if you've seen them, are not equipped. There are no ramps.
I understand.
Again, the initiative is...
It wasn't the time for that when they were settling in.
Well, yes, someone has to take it on. And if someone is watching us now and thinks, oh, I'm ready to take on this initiative...
If you hear it, take it.
Yes, really.
We are waiting for you.
We support. Like, if someone comes and says, I'm ready, let's do it. We will provide them with all the contacts. We will help with the project. The question is, someone has to be this locomotive, the one who will break through this wall, you know?
Do we have such people? Maybe organizations? Maybe you can suggest something where a person can realize themselves if they know how to do it. Not everyone is lazy like me. Everyone can be like, oh, I know, I want to help. Who to turn to? Because it can be both a charitable story and a volunteer one.
Well, today I can say that firstly, there is the NGO space of Maikita. This is Save Peace in UA from the foundation that was created with partners. You can come there. There are many super active people and organizations. You can contact me personally, but I think that, well, in short, if you want to contact me personally, write about the project of making dormitories inclusive so they have ramps. I support you. Any project as well. Well, the main project now, which is in Dnipro and our region, is this NGO space. In general, well, Maikita, he is an incredibly powerful person who can just, well, why space? Because the project is really, well, like, launched into space. Implemented at the country level, like our housing project, and in general, all my communications, which were mostly at the state level, are with Maikita. Really just wrote, did everything, went, did, what a letter. Look, such a story, simply. When we were doing the MTP, one of the donors told us, get a recommendation letter from the Ministry of Reintegration for your fund. What letter? How to get it when you're still unknown, when you have nothing yet? Well, yes, you supposedly have 100 people living there. Well, they were already occupied with something else. My Kaida says it's fine, let's write it. I wrote a letter to someone literally in about 3 days. They give me a letter with a signature. Here, take it. And it solved the issue. And again, this is about Maikita. He's cool.
I'm curious, will there be at least one podcast where they say something bad about Maikita?
I think not. Well, you know, no, I think not.
No, well, I'm joking. I understand. I knew him as a student. Well, even then he was such a ringleader. South.
Well, listen, please support Maikita. He's such a cool guy. Like, subscribe. We will be very grateful, and we'll give you a very big grant later, all right?
But that's not certain.
But that's not certain, right? You know, I have a person similar to Maikita whom I saw. It's Maxim Tkachenko, a member of parliament. I met him when he came to the IDP council to us. He is also very active. He just, well, I don't know. He's constantly organizing people. By the way, he's like Nikita. You talk to him, yes, 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 yes. And already he has something else in his head.
Event here.
Yes, yes.
A meeting is needed.
But a very large part essentially relies on such people. Just like you said, when you want to do something but don't know where to go, people like Maikita help you get through this part of the unknown. And so I think, why did we create the Shelter Association? So that people could go through this experience. If you want an IDP, if you have an IDP, you don't understand what to do. If you want to create, again, a project now in Novovoskovsk, in Pirorodne, in Dnipro, we are starting a project with one of the public organizations. The community allocated 3 and 2 hectares of land. The public organization is ready to enter and build townhouses there for internally displaced persons. Co-financing, as far as I remember, I roughly know now, 80 to 20. 80% is financed by international partners, 20 by internally displaced persons, and it becomes their property. This is again about the program. Just unite as much as possible, communicate with others, communication between regions, involve organizations that are ready to enter another region. And for example, when you build, for instance, townhouses on land, you need to develop a project. A project costs, well, not cheap. A project is expensive if you do it from scratch, but there are communities in other regions that have already done this. We can take this project from them, use it here as, so to speak, a general, well, like...
As a vivid example that is already working.
I forgot the word, what it's called, like a template. So we can use it as a template project. We have 3, 3, and 2 hectares of land, show it to donors, and it'll be easier. Again, about unification. If we talk about the bad, we are currently very bad at interaction between regions, specifically in terms of coordination between us, local organizations.
Do you think it's because of laziness? Because of competition? Because of we don't want to be on our own? Uh-huh. Why is this happening?
Well, I think, first of all, there are no decisions at the level of international partners that would unite these organizations because we all, like, you work, you have a lot of your own work, a lot of things to do, and you don't have time to lift your head and just go, like, to Venezia and meet someone there. Why do you need this? And what will it give you? If these initiatives were done by either international partners or regional military administrations, well, like, there is a volunteer council at each regional administration. For example, I am part of this volunteer council. Well, it's not very strong yet. Just like that, it's not very strong yet. But if, for example, you, Maikita, and Marina were involved, well, Marina's already there, by the way, involve Veronica and another dozen active people I know. And if we hold a meeting with other volunteer councils in other regions, just organize a forum. Well, donors constantly organize some forums. Organize a forum for these volunteer councils, gather them in one place. It will be something.
I think I hear again that we have such a union or what? A council of volunteers at the UWA. Honestly, you see, well, because you know what kind of volunteer I am. I am like that. I help, but I don't really like those gatherings, forums, and all that.
I'm like, I have an idea. We have to create a forum where you would be the host, then you would definitely be there.
All right. Then okay. No, let's do it. I'm all for it. When uniting, it's cool.
Jenya from the RCC wants to organize a volunteer forum in Dnipro, bringing together like 4 regions. Let's see what comes of it.
All right. Let me pretend that I know him, but I don't.
But let me pretend that I know him. Well, Yevon, like, have you talked to him? RCC Coordination and Humanitarian Center. You talked to someone about what I said about him. You talked to the guys on the phone. You haven't seen them yet.
Oh, well, yes, on the phone, yes. Well, on the phone, I almost know everyone then.
That's why I think it's really necessary to have more and more. Well, now there's a trend towards uniting local organizations with each other so they can do joint projects in a consortium. And I think it's a cool story.
So if anything, write to Ilya. Let's do it. Ilya will sort everything out. Thank you very much for the conversation. I believe that soon everything will be fine and everything will work out. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.